cycles in all of this?
Well, you start with understanding our purpose here. We are individuated units of consciousness. Our goal is to decrease the entropy of our consciousness. That's so us and our system can continue to evolve. So to create a virtual reality where you can get feedback, where there's consequences. In a tight rule set, virtual reality like ours, everything has consequences. So you get in this entropy reduction trainer we call our universe, and you make choices. And by those choices, you tend to reduce your entropy or grow your entropy. If you reduce your entropy, you're evolving, going forward, and the system then does too, because you're a part of it. So that's your purpose. The whole system wants to constantly work to keep its entropy low so it can continue to exist. Now, it turns out that in the social system of all these individuated units of consciousness, the way you create more information is by cooperation, caring, working with each other, helping each other. I call that the love side. The way that you increase entropy or de-evolve is through non-cooperation. It's all about me. I'm going to take mine, and I'll take some of yours too if I can get it and keep it. That then creates entropy and is de-evolutionary. So we're making choices here, trying to grow up to become love, to become caring, to become cooperative. That's our mission here. So we're consciousness, making choices, we're trying to evolve, which means move us more toward becoming love. So that's what we do. Now, you can't do that in a one shot. It doesn't work. All comes and goes. You take what you did last time and you start with that and you add to it. Learning is that way. Learning is cumulative. You can't just, at 3 years old, take calculus. It won't work. You got to start with arithmetic. So in order to learn, it has to be a cumulative process. So you accumulate through lifetimes and you grow. Every time you go through a lifetime, you decrease your entropy if you're successful a little bit, or if you increase it, you de-evolve a little bit. The next time, you get to start where you stopped last time. And that's why we go through these cycles, keeping our system viable and ourselves viable, and our mission is to become love. That's where we're headed.
There is potential irony here that the physicists of this planet will be the ones that corroborate Christ and the golden rule of love and do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Absolutely. That was one of the big aha, kind of strange things that I didn't expect. I'm a physicist, so I'm working at this idea of consciousness, trying to understand it. And when I finally kind of figure it out, and I realize that a lot of the things that are in religious philosophy are actually true. You know, these are people who actually have seen the nature of our reality and how it works. And as they understood it, they had to put it into terminology that suited their times and the other people. You have to communicate in a language that they understand.
Do you think that the yin and yang symbol is a metaphor for a universe of entropy in which everything is winding down, and that the dark versus the light seem to always be in conflict?
The dark and the light always in conflict? Yes. And the reason for that is that's the nature of free will. The reason we have good versus evil is our theme in everything. Movies, literature, good versus evil, because that is the key thing. That's what we're doing here. We're trying to evolve in the positive direction. That's love. That's positive. We have those that can make an opposite choice. They have free will. They can choose to be self-centered. So the reason you have evil is because there's free will, not because there has to be an equal amount of it. Now, there is this struggle between the two because they're going in opposite directions. The negative part, ones that are de-evolving, they love and enjoy chaos. Those of us that are trying to work in the opposite direction, we're trying to work against that because that's the nature of evolution. It just keeps chugging. The stuff that works goes on. The stuff that doesn't work eventually self-destructs. That's the nature of our reality frame.
And there are all kinds of contradictions and areas that I know that it run through people's mind, but at least you've been exposed to the thinking of somebody who has perhaps been in another dimension and a physicist who is actively working with people at Caltech on papers that are going to try to test, are we living in a simulated universe? And this takes me back to Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe. And while Michael Talbot was, according to Bud, receiving this information about our universe from an alien intelligence, a brilliant physicist, David Bohm, released in a groundbreaking book in 1980 called Wholeness and the Implicit Order. If you have not read this book, I urge you to. It is extremely profound. Bohm explained that implicate means an ever-present hidden order, that we have not been living on this planet understanding the hidden order that is enfolded into all objects and appearances of this universe, from subatomic particles to huge galaxies. And Bohm also concluded, quote, all mass is frozen light. All mass is frozen light. Recognizing in physicist David Bohm's work the same concepts that the alien intelligence downloaded to him, Michael Talbot wrote, quote, one of Bohm's most startling assertions is that the tangible reality of our everyday lives is really a kind of illusion, like a holographic image. Underlying it is a deeper order of existence, a vast and more primary level of reality that gives birth to all the objects and appearances of our physical world in much the same way that a piece of holographic film gives birth to a hologram. Bohm calls this deeper level of reality the implicit order, which means enfolded. And he refers to our own level of existence, like in the room, as the explicit order, which is unfolded from that which is hidden to the out. Put another way, Talbot said, quote, electrons and all other particles are no more real or permanent than the form that a geyser of water takes as it gushes out of a fountain. Think about it. You're seeing a shape, but the shape is only water. And the water is only going into a shape because of some sort of a rule set that is at the base of the fountain. So for physicist David Bohm, subatomic particles are sustained by a constant influx from the implicate, the hidden order, the underlying computer code that is enfolded in everything that there is. Zeros and ones are the mathematical language of our universe enfolded in that implicate order. And in a piece of holographic film, the film is in an implicate order because the image encoded in its interference patterns is hidden, enfolded throughout the film. The hologram projected from the film is an explicit order because it represents the unfolding of the enfolded image, and only one thing can do it: light. The constant and flowing exchange between the two orders explains how particles, such as the electron, can shapeshift from one kind of particle to another. Say an electron enfolds back into the implicate order, while another, let's say a photon, unfolds and takes the electron's place. That would also explain how a quantum photon can be either a particle or a wave. But it is the consciousness of a player in the cosmic computer simulation that interacts with all the implicate possibilities and determines what unfolds and what remains hidden. All of the constant moment-by-moment unfoldings and enfoldings are why physicist Bohm referred to our entire universe as a hollow movement instead of a hologram. Now, which simulation hypothesis might be true? The holographic universe? Tom Campbell's information and consciousness is all that there is universe? Or something else incomprehensible to us Homo sapien? One incomprehensible insight came to a male abductee, a friend of mine still, who was working with abduction investigator Bud Hopkins in New York City, and I'll call this abductee Paul. He was the successful owner and manager of his own water quality laboratory in New Jersey. It was his 32nd birthday with his parents, his sister, and her husband, and they had gone into New York City to celebrate over dinner. Around midnight, they were coming out of the city onto the I-95 freeway going south. Paul's father was driving the car. Paul was in the front passenger seat. In the back were his mom, sister, and her husband. Paul's father asked, "Well, when did they build a restaurant on a tower?" And he was pointing to a round group of lights in the sky. Paul, the analytical scientist, said, "Dad, that isn't a restaurant on a tower. That's something in the sky." So Paul's father pulled over to the side of the freeway not far out of New York, and now they are all looking and arguing about what the round lighted thing is in the sky. Suddenly, Paul said he felt a physical sensation of splitting into two, with one part going forward up and through the front windshield. And as that part rose, he wanted to see the car, and immediately his rising self could look down and see his father unmoving behind the steering wheel, and he could see his own body, his own unmoving body in the passenger seat. As his out-of-body self continued to rise upward, Paul saw this red blinking light and headed for it. The red light was above a large donut-shaped craft, and Paul felt pulled downward into the middle of the donut. And then he could see several gray-skinned beings with big black slanted eyes standing in a circle, all looking up at him as he was coming down. He became terrified, and he began screaming, trying to paddle his legs as if he were swimming to reverse course and go back up. But Paul ended up standing right in the middle of the gray beings. And then in a jump cut, his memory is lying on a table, and to his right, extending out of dark shadows, is a gray-skinned hand with 4 long, skinny fingers wrapped around a silver instrument that Paul compared to an electric toothbrush. But it had a sky blue light shining out of the end that was approaching Paul's chest. Paul was a practicing Buddhist, and he believed in mind over matter. So he concentrated very hard on his arm muscles and said to me that his arms were down, and he managed suddenly with this burst of energy, "I will do this." And his hands came like this. And he said the being's hand never stopped, and that he then, to his incomprehensible horror, found his own hands doing this on his own body. And then the hand and the light hit him right in the middle of his hands. And he said that it felt like when you touch an electric wire or an electric fence. Then, the next scene Paul remembers is being in a room where there was a large 3-dimensional screen of stars and galaxies. A gray being takes Paul to look at a screen. He said it was 3-dimensional, what we would call today a hologram. And in the hologram and this 3-dimensional, there are points of light, and then there is a pattern. It comes 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And the ET points to one of these and says, explaining telepathically to Paul, that they are looking at 10 universes, paired 5 pairs. And the being points at one and says, "You are one of the universes of these 10 in these 5 pairs. And the being then says, here's your universe, and the one right next to it is exactly the opposite of your universe. And the gray being then telepaths to Paul at that moment that at biological death in this universe, our soul spirit enters a tunnel zone to change charge from this universe to go into the universe next door, the pairs. And the way Paul explained it was that negatively charged electrons and positively charged protons in the universe here would change to positively charged electrons and negatively charged protons in the next door universe in order for the soul spirit to enter the other opposite universe. Paul said the 3D screen changed from 5 pair of universes into the universe that was identified by the gray as being the opposite of ours. And then he said what he saw was a cosmic sky that was white with black dots of stars and galaxy shapes, and that he was shown planets, and that the colors were vibrant, iridescent, that they glowed in shades that he had never seen before. And the gray showed Paul that electrons there were oppositely charged from this universe, and protons, everything was negative, and that the vector of time in that opposite universe goes to the past. No entropy there, where nothing deteriorates, nothing ages, or could be broken. And Paul said the Eben touched the 3-dimensional screen, and the 10 paired universes reappeared, and the Eben pointed and said, when your body containers in your current universe die, they pass through a dark tunnel to change charge before they enter the white light brightness of the universe paired with yours that is completely the opposite of your universe. Your universe, where time moves to the future, is ruled by entropy, where everything loses energy and dies. The other paired universe is ruled by non-entropy, where time moves to the past, and everything evolves to young and fresh, and nothing dies. The Eben made a motion with its long gray finger from our universe in the 3D screen to the opposite universe paired with ours. And Paul told me the finger motion was like the Eben was tracing the infinity symbol. And Paul also saw scenes in his mind's eye of an elderly human soul in this universe enter the tunnel to change charge and entered a container body in the next door universe. And then that body got younger and younger and passed back through the tunnel to change charge before it was born in this universe. This reminds me, this pattern carved in stone, it reminds me of Paul's experience. This is nearly 4,000-year-old spiral labyrinth carved in stone near Cornwall in the UK. It is said to represent the cyclic renewal of life, the great round of death and rebirth, the journey of the soul in and out of past, present, and future. These labyrinths have been found carved on ancient rocks in England, Ireland, the Adriatic Sea region, Hopi Indian lands, Greece, and the island of Crete. And some date to at least 4,000 years before Christ. And physicist David Bohm might have said that these stone spirals could represent the cycle between universes and dimensions related to the pulse, a pulse, between wave and particle of light. The pulse between wave and particle of light could be the fundamental foundation and explanation for everything. In the 1986 book, Dialogues with Scientists and Sages, Bohm says this in an interview. He's passed, but I think of him as this enormous mind still. Quote, mass is a phenomenon of connecting light rays which go back and forth, sort of freezing them into a pattern. So matter, as it were, is condensed or frozen light. Light is not merely electromagnetic waves, but in a sense, other kinds of waves that go at that speed. Therefore, all matter is a condensation of light into patterns moving back and forth at average speeds, which are less than the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second. Even Einstein had some